Welcome to the Voice of Florida Architecture. I'm your host, Rhonda Hammond, AIA. This series of conversations introduces the new appointees to the Florida Board of Architecture and Interior Design. On October 30th of 2024, Florida's governor appointed 3 new architects. Continuing the series, today we have the privilege of speaking with one of the new members, Miss Beverly Frank, AIA. Hi, Beverly.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me, Rhonda.
So I've had the privilege of getting to know you through our work on AI Florida's board. We've served together since 2021, culminating in my being president-elect during your presidency. And I believe that there's not a more brilliant, gracious, experienced, or credentialed professional. So a heartfelt congratulations on your appointment.
You're too kind. Thank you so much, Rhonda. It's a tremendous honor, and it was a position that I really wanted desperately. So I'm really excited to continue to do service for the architects within the state and the people of the state of Florida.
The board, BOAID as it's known, is primarily responsible for licensing and regulating architects and interior designs. But before we get into the details of the work on the board, would you share your journey to becoming an architect with us?
Sure. It was not intentional. I honestly did not have a clear path towards joining any profession, let alone college. I knew it was something my parents aspired for us to do, but we grew up financially challenged in my family with three children. And so I actually started working full time when I was 12 years old. So from 12 to 20, I worked at least one job, but then 3 jobs by the time I was 20 years old, and got married young. So ended up going back to college after a career in the insurance industry, and somehow found my way to architecture and have never looked back. It's something I truly am passionate about and truly enjoy.
You're a member of AIA Tampa Bay and a principal in your own firm with extensive university work experience. Currently, as an adjunct professor, you're teaching the professional practice series. As the 2023 AI Florida president, a record-breaking year in all aspects, both in attendance at Legislative Day, our convention and trade show, and even our overall membership grew. The theme you chose for the year was liminal spaces, bridging the gap. Explain how your role as a professional and educator influenced your choice of themes and how it was addressed at convention and throughout your year.
What a great question, Rhonda. I think, with anything else, as our society evolves and the profession evolves, things have a tendency to pull apart, or some things may fall through the cracks. And those cracks really started to create some pretty significant gaps in particularly the education of future architects. And with those gaps, part of that transition happened because of accelerated pace of technology and how it was impacting our profession, along with the recession in 2008 through 2010, just tremendously impacted the institutional knowledge. And the way most architects learn is through apprenticeship. So their exposure to people who understood how we practice, why we practice the way that we do, there was a gap between technology and the way people practice. So there were all these influences, and then with societal changes and then even COVID happening, further created some tensions within practice. And so seeing all of that and understanding that for us as a profession to really build trust and value with the general public, with the people that we serve, with clients, it was very important that we stem that and address that. So that became the impetus behind bridging the gap. And the term bridging the gap actually came from Shadia Yaramia, who had not been licensed at the time. And I thought it was really important to hear the influence of our younger members and younger leadership.
Now, you also served on the selection committee for the new dean at USF.
Yes.
And if I recall correctly, one of the requirements that you insisted upon was that the new dean be licensed. Talk about that a little bit.
It was startling to me because, of course, the School of Architecture is under the College of Performing and Visual Arts, which is now the College of Design at University of South Florida. And because it was under the College of Design, the committee, the selection committee, which I absolutely think was wonderful and appropriate, consisted of people across the spectrum within the college. So, of course, there were a couple licensed architects that are also permanent full-time faculty on the board, on the committee. And I, as an alum and as a professional, served as the public member. But when I said that, the response was, well, that's just one of the criteria. And it was really interesting to me to look at it through that lens, through their eyes, which I always think it's important to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and it's foundational to architecture to be empathetic. But it said we have a long way to go as a profession to educate the general public and explain why licensure is so critically important, how it protects the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. And first and foremost, that's the first thing that young professionals should learn when they go to a school of architecture, a college of architecture, is you are licensed for health, safety, and welfare. So regardless of the path that your degree may take you, that's what architects do. That's what distinguishes an architect from an interior designer or from any designer, full stop. And so it was good to hear, but it was also good to feel confident to say, no, this is the critical thing that for that position we need to have. And so being on that selection committee, I felt very fortunate. The finalists and the person who became the new director of the school was, of course, my mentor, someone that was a professor of mine, but also I taught with 18 years ago at USF, Ron Delaney. And to this day, I'll remember one of the things that he always taught me was everything in architecture has modularity. And so it's those little things that I think anchor you to how you practice, and for me, how I teach. So I was greatly appreciative of being on that selection committee, and that the outcome was one of my mentors ended up getting that position.
So one of the highlights of your year was the Design Awards. Share about your choice to curate a distinguished jury from South Korea.
First of all, let me say, I think that it was what an honor and an opportunity to be able to share that Florida architecture has, we have some of the most amazing architects and amazing design in the world. And to be able to showcase that on an international stage and have the kind of response we had from the Korean people, and in particular, our chair, Gibson Rhee, was remarkable. The fact that I got to share that with you, Rhonda, that you and Chrissy Somerville and Becky Magdaleno got to be on that journey with us, that we had such an amazing response from Korean, not only Korean architecture media, but Korean media in general, that were interested in why we decided to have the jury hosted in South Korea, I thought was spectacular. And it went along with the theme of bridging the gap. For me, as an Asian American architect, it was breathtaking to be able to think about the lens of architecture through my heritage and understand that culturally, the way Asians experience space and place and that influence, bringing our design awards to them would help bridge a international gap, as well as a gap in the way we practice architecture here in Florida. So it was an unbelievable opportunity. I thank our membership for supporting the fact that you'll have to remind me how many years it's been that we've done this international jury, but it makes the outcome of our awards, and it pushes our design as Floridians to a completely different level. So I would say throughout the country, throughout AIA, it's one of the things that distinguishes our membership, our chapter. So I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that we got to do that together in Korea.
It was a phenomenal trip. I was really curious to see how Florida designed and the projects would be received by this incredible jury. And like you say, the comments, the questions, and just the general reception was just so welcoming. I'll always remember that
Well,
trip.
and can I say, for you think about any culture that's been devastated or ravaged by war, what was a third world country within a span of 70 years, plus or
Mhm.
minus, has turned into a first world country with architecture that's unparalleled is a great testament. And for them to be so receptive, for
Mhm.
Floridian architects to be able to present their awards and have such unbelievable commentary about the way that Floridians design for the climate, for resilience, for sustainability, for the way people live, and going into your theme of live, work, and play, and how well that was woven into their commentary on the design
Mhm.
awards, I thought was pretty remarkable.
Now they invited you to serve on one of their design award juries, not? Did they, is that correct?
Yes, they did. And so I will be a juror for the Asian Design Awards. It's 20, I believe it's 22 countries. And I'm one of, I believe it's either 8 or 10 jurors. So I'm getting more information as we work through the process of that. So that's a thrill of a lifetime as well.
So the annual convention is in Tampa this year. Are there any highlights you'd like to share that we can expect?
Well, it's just, it's extraordinary, right? That we get to be on Water Street in Tampa. It's been a long time since AIA Florida hosted the convention and the design awards here in Tampa. And generally it's because Tampa had you'd roll up the sidewalks at 5 p.m. that both downtown St. Pete and downtown Tampa did not have the most progressive urban centers. And now it's a thriving urban center. Not only that, that post-COVID, the Channel Side area, thanks to Water Street and the Water Street development, has just exploded. And I believe the area is more than all of downtown Tampa combined. And all of that has happened post-COVID. So it's pretty remarkable to see a city basically develop that fast and develop correctly. I mean, it feels good. The scale is good. I think that our membership is going to be really excited about the kind of environment that it will offer them outside of seminars and CEUs and all the other things that AIA Florida does a phenomenal job in bringing to our membership and beyond. So I think this will be unparalleled. I mean, the Breakers is great, but I think this will offer a little more elbow room. And I think the venue being at the JW Marriott on Water Street I think our membership will be thrilled with it.
I'm not certain if I shared this story with you, but a few years back, I took a group of students to Tampa, tour the Water Street area. And at the end of the day, while we were waiting on the bus to come back through, one of the students, his name was Javel. You remember Javel?
Yes, he was an
Yes.
intern here at my studio.
Yes, that was him. He said, I would like to live here. He said, everybody is smiling. Everybody all day long has been smiling. He said, they're happy to be here. And I thought, what an
So
incredible
true.
observation and testimony about a place. One of the most memorable times for me was during your presidency when we were at the Leadership Summit in DC. And it was announced that a search for the new architect of the Capitol was announced. And it seemed like the description was absolutely written for you. And if I recall correctly, you made it to the top 10 candidates.
I did. That was
You did.
talk about a moment in your life that seemed a little surreal.
Share about that, going through that process.
Well, I just remember Emily Grandstaff Rice standing up, giving the initial delivery for our leadership summit in DC and saying jokingly, if anybody wants to throw their hat in the ring, I thought to myself, why not? And so I went back I was sitting in the lobby of the hotel and I called my husband and I said, what would you think if I decided to do this? And his response, true to form for 33 years, has been whatever you want to do. And So I think that that's another testament. I have great backup in my home
Mhm.
life to say
Mhm.
whatever you want to do. I've never had anybody tell me, put restraints on anything I've wanted to pursue. And then lo and behold, the vice president of advocacy for AIA National was sitting in the lobby, had just sat down when I got off the phone with my husband. So I approached her and asked, and she said, well, we're submitting names tomorrow at noon. So if you can get your CV to us, it'll go in front of Emily for review, and then we will decide which names AIA National would put forward. And so, as you know, Rhonda, we all left together. And so I got my resume together that night. So scrambling to get a CV together while attending the leadership summit, because I certainly didn't want to miss any of that. And then turned around, we left the next afternoon. We're in the airport when I got the phone call that your name has been forwarded to the White House by AI National, because at the time it was a presidential appointment. So
Mhm.
that was February of 2023.
3. Yeah.
2023.
Mhm.
Fast forward to March of 2024, when my name then was passed up through the chain, and it ended up there was some horse trading. That position became a congressional appointment rather than a presidential appointment. And Congress had hired a search firm out of Seattle and DC to perform that search. And so through that process, I did AIA National was very helpful, very instrumental in helping connect me with their legislative lobbyist in DC, who helped make some connections to different senators and members of the House in DC. So on my own, I went to DC a couple times to meet with different members of Congress, with their staff, and finally had an interview. I think it was in May of last year, and one of the top 10 finalists. And while I didn't make it, I'll tell you, it was an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything. I think that what I was most proud of is, as an architect, I didn't feel that there was any higher calling than to serve our country that way. And it would have been an honor of a lifetime, but it was an honor to just be considered. It was a joy of my life to go through that process, and try to do something impactful and really it was for our country and
Mhm.
for our profession. So I would highly encourage everybody, if don't ever think of the why nots, think of the what if.
AIA Florida has always promoted architects to serve in the public realm. Being appointed to the BOAID is not your first gubernatorial appointment. Tell us about your time on the Florida Arts Council.
Well, I actually have a board meeting this week. I'll be coming up to Tallahassee, where I'm looking forward to having lunch with you, but
Please.
hopefully Becky. But coming up for my second board meeting for the Florida Council on Arts and Culture. My undergraduate degree is actually in art education, and so I've always been a huge advocate for the arts, and it's obviously very tangential to architecture, very important to architecture. And so it's an opportunity again to serve the people of the state of Florida, and to represent architects and how significant it is, how closely art and culture and architecture are tied together, because this position affords me the opportunity to look at projects that are going to be partially funded by state public money, by state funds, and help to provide my expertise relative to budgets on projects and my experience to let them know whether those seem in line with the kinds of projects whether those things are in line with current trends, and whether it's a good use of public money. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me again to demonstrate the value of architects and architecture to the state of Florida.
So, Beverly Frank, AIA, you are now a newly appointed architect to the Florida Board of Architecture and Interior Design. This is an important appointment. What motivated you to apply? You said you wanted it badly.
So I started going to BOAID meetings thanks to AIA really opening the eyes of membership and affording us a lot of opportunities and exposure to things that I think we take for granted. And as architects licensed in the state of Florida, BOAID is something that touches every single one of us, but it's also something that touches the lives of every Floridian, whether they know it or not, because again, they're responsible for upholding the tenets that protect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. And so being on the board for AIA, there was always an opportunity to go to the BOAID meetings, which are open to the public, and sit in the audience and hear the board members discuss and deliberate the issues that come before them. And it was eye-opening. It was a revelation to be able to see the work that they do. It's a big lift for the 4 to 5 meetings that they have every year and a 5-year appointment. It was also shocking to see over the last several years how many of those board members had been in their positions for longer than 5 years. And so whether that's due to not enough architects realizing that there are these opportunities to serve your profession and serve the community by having either a gubernatorial appointment or even a local appointment, I think it's bringing an awareness to all architects that we have to serve our communities better and we have to demonstrate the value that we bring. But I thought listening to people sit in front of the board and sometimes not know what their responsibilities were as a licensed professional was shocking to me. It ties in with education and needing to make more of a push at local levels to ensure that people that are going up for licensure, it's not taken for granted and they fully understand what their responsibilities and their role as an architect is. So seeing all of those things really compelled me to want to be on the board. And so I put my hat in the ring. It just so happened that 2 appointments came up at the same time. And while I would have been delighted with the Florida Council on Arts and Culture and that alone, I really wanted to be on the board of architecture and interior design and serve our profession that way. So I'm delighted to be on both.
So shifting gears just a little bit, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing the profession now and in the near future?
It is no doubt that there are so many different avenues for architects to take, and what we do has a lot of facets to it. I've always said I liken what we do as architects to the conductor in an orchestra, bringing together a lot of different components and notes and facets to create beautiful music. And sometimes it's hard because you're dealing with people and people's personalities, and there's a lot of different influences to what we do. There's a lot of different specialties to what we do. And as technology advances, those specialties become ever changing, very much like medicine. There's just so many different roles that you can go into. And so I think that ever increasing diversity of the way that we can practice and technology can take the focus off of the health, safety, and welfare aspect, and reminding everyone that that's where we bring value. But also we bring value to owners every day, and we're exceptional, I think, at what we do. And the Florida membership of AIA especially, I think, is exceptional at what they do and demonstrate that every day. So when it comes to the challenges of, we have partnerships with contractors and engineers and interior designers, but we also can't lose sight of the things that we do and we excel at and that we specifically are licensed for, that every day we face challenges from those same partners, that it's hard to not cross the line to be adversarial and make sure that we maintain our expertise and maintain our position and our value as architects, not at the expense of those relationships, but in a way that we can reinforce why we have those relationships, if that makes sense.
So, Beverly, your service to the association has been exemplary. Why is membership in AIA important for the profession?
Our architecture, it's interesting. In my service on the board, there's the Small Business Development Council, and having done some research into that, one of the things we discovered was that 99.9% of architecture firms are considered small businesses. And most architecture firms are 1 to 2 to maybe 5 people. So it's very small businesses, but small businesses don't have deep pockets. We don't have deep research and development funding. We rely on partnerships with vendors, with our engineers, but that still leaves you on an island when you're a small business. AIA becomes a wonderful incubator for architects from all walks, no matter what you practice, to be able to have sounding boards, to be able to have a wealth of research and development, to be able to have the kinds of relationships to make you feel like, A, you're not on an island, to be able to give you information and help you practice better. And first and foremost, to be able to give you the resources that you need to bring value to clients, and once again, reinforce the value of architects and architecture. So every day, I think that AIA Florida in particular works to provide value to its members and does an extraordinary job at it. So I highly encourage anyone out there that's on the fence. And if you are a member of AIA Florida, what can you do to help give back and consider joining and becoming a board member or be on a committee or something, because it's very, very rewarding.
Thank you, Beverly, for your continued dedication and service to the profession, to AIA Florida, and for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Thank you for having me, and thanks to everyone behind the scenes who does such an amazing job at AIA Florida.
I hope our listeners have enjoyed the conversation with Beverly Frank, AIA, your newly appointed member of the Florida Board of Architecture and Interior Design. It's evident our board is in quite capable hands. Stay tuned as we continue to introduce the new architect members of the board. Thank you for listening to the Voice of Florida Architecture, the podcast for AIA Florida, and you can find us wherever you stream your podcast. I'm your host, Rhonda Hammond, AIA.